Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pastured Pig Podcast. I'm glad to be back and not nearly as long of a break as it took last time. So getting back in the groove of things, we've got some interviews lined up, so I think we're going to be in good shape heading into fall. A couple quick announcements before we get on to our discussion. First of all, I want to do a shout out for an event coming up hosted by two of our podcast friends. Two guys that have been on the podcast in the past. One is Jack Polner with A Mindful Homestead. He was episode 19, if you want to learn more about him. And then Brian Wells at 3B Farms. He was episode 53. So the two of those guys are getting together. They're both New Englanders. So they're getting together and they formed the HONE, or Homesteaders of New England. And they're doing a mini conference on September 10th. And 11th of 2022 coming up soon. And I believe the tickets are only $25 for the weekend. And they're going to be talking about homesteading. Pastured piggery, of course, is going to be part of that. They're going to be talking about all those elements as it pertains to a New England slant. So kind of this colder climate, harsher winters type situation. So I really like the way they're approaching this, kind of addressing it to that area. So if you guys are from that area, or maybe you're colder climates in either Canada or northern Midwest or those type of things where you deal with those colder climates, this would be something for you. So check that out. I believe it's in New Hampshire. I'm going to leave details, the link in the show description, so you guys can check that out and sign up if you want to go. Sounds like it'd be a neat situation. If that wasn't a 16-hour drive for me, I would definitely be there. A couple other announcements. I just want to remind everyone our Facebook group, The Pastured Pig, is growing. We've had some good discussion going on there recently, so be sure to check that out. You just have to answer a simple little question, and I'll let you in. And just a reminder of the Patreon out there. So if you want to support the podcast and help us continue to provide these episodes and try to grow to our next benchmark, when we get to 40 supporters, we'll do our next level benchmark. And then some of the information we have out there in the Patreon behind the paywall. And just recently we had Tanner Spurlock share his data Excel spreadsheet of how he tracks his data on his farm. So that's available for you all. And I wanted to say that here in the next 2 weeks, we'll be releasing a podcast about the importance of a good cut sheet and detailing that. And I'm going to provide my editable cut sheet to our Patreon supporters, and that'd be something you can go in and simply make changes, but it has not only details about the cuts, but also details for your customers. So it kind of explains certain things, has some of the CYA stuff on it. So it's something that you can take and edit it real easy to change out your information and tweak it how you need to tweak. So I want to make that available for our Patreon people as well. So look forward to that. That'll actually be our next episode that we have ready to go out, I believe. That's the plan, at least. And lastly, talking about interviews, so where I'm recording right now, I'm recording finally at the home office. We've got our Starlink lined out. I think everything's going to be good there. Had a lot of tests done. I appreciate those of you all that had volunteered to be guinea pigs as we tested this. And I did have, actually, one of my guinea pigs turned out to be a live recording that we did, and it'll be an episode coming up at some point. And that was with a gentleman in Christchurch, New Zealand. So talk about a test. And it worked really well, other than I think we had maybe 2 little data blips where we dropped out for a couple seconds over the course of a 48-minute conversation. It did really, really well. So very happy with that. So what we did, that opens up some doors here. So now we're talking Zoom. We used Zoom for that one because the actually doing voice over IP was a little too dodgy coming that far across the world, I guess. But Zoom worked perfectly. So what's exciting about that, something I've been wanting to do ever since I started this podcast, is do multiple people in an interview. So have a almost like a forum discussion as a round table or something like that. So I'm anxious to look into that. Maybe reaching out to some of you all that have been on the podcast already, so I know some details about your farm, and see if we could if we can get everything to align, have multiple people on, and kind of do a core discussion where we drill down deeper on specific topics and things. So look for that, or if you've got some ideas that you would like to see in a roundtable type discussion, give me a shout and we'll jump into that. Okay, so let's get into today's episode. Today, I'm speaking with Grant Estrade, and he's with Laughing Buddha Nursery down in Rio, Louisiana. And what's interesting about this interview is we're going to talk, there's some discussion near the end about an event that he has coming up at Polyface Farm. And you realize that, hey, Troy, you're releasing this podcast after that event had happened. Well, that was on purpose. The event was postponed. Grant had to reschedule it because of signups and some other issues there, but he is planning on continuing to do this. He is going to get another date set. So if you find interest in what he's talking about, you may want to reach out to him, and I'll have his contact information in our show description as well. Reach out to him, let him know that you're interested, because that will help him kind of reschedule a date for this. So when you hear that, just know that event is not taking place in August, that it has been rescheduled, or it's on the list to be rescheduled. New date has not yet been set, but he is planning to reschedule that. So that's kind of why I delayed the podcast. I didn't want to be confusing there. I didn't want to edit out all the details of it, because I think it's still interesting to hear what he's talking about and what the plan of the event is, especially since he plans on actually doing it at some point. But Grant has an interesting approach to composting with using pigs, and he talks about in Louisiana some of the issues he has with pigs on pasture and open paddocks. That's a mouthful. Pigs, pasture paddocks. So he's using them for composting, which I really liked his approach to that. But I'm not going to spoil any of the surprise. I'm going to let him get in and tell you about it, and I'll catch you guys on the tail end of the interview. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Troy McClung. Excited to have with me today Grant Estrade from the Laughing Buddha Nursery, all the way down in Louisiana. So welcome, Grant.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
A little steamy down in Louisiana right now, isn't it?
Oh, man. Yeah, summer came a little early. We were getting 90s at mid-May. Normally doesn't happen until end of May. So it's going to get steamy. We're ready for it, though. Yeah.
That's the thing. You can't be frail in Louisiana. You can't complain about the heat if you live in Louisiana.
That's right. Yeah. The heat's one thing. It's the humidity. It's like changing all your clothes 3 times a day because you're sweating because the humidity is like 95%. But yeah, it's part of the deal.
Yeah. As a guy that wears glasses, has worn glasses all of his life, humidity really sucks because you live most of the summer in a fog.
Oh, yeah, right. You got to keep like your glasses outside so they're not getting fogged up as you go in and out, Yeah.
Right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. So let's start here, because there's actually a lot of stuff I know we want to cover, because Grant's got a lot of stuff going on here. But let's first talk about. Tell me a little bit about Laughing Buddha Nursery. What it's about, and kind of what you guys have going on down there.
Well, it's we've been at it for about 20 years now. Right at about 19 and a half years, I opened up a retail garden store, Laughing Buddha Nursery, and things have changed. For sure. We used to focus on helping folks have their own vegetable garden. A lot of the garden centers weren't specializing in that, so we decided to do that, and that kind of turned into having a garden soil and composting business, because people would call and they were like, well, we want to put a vegetable garden in, we need good soil. And honestly, when I opened up the store, I hadn't really thought about that. And so it turned into part of the business is selling that bulk garden soil. And that turned into a whole nother business that I had gotten involved in, with some large scale composting operations and in other smaller locations. And now, we've kind of cycled out of doing the gardening supplies. We still do the compost, but now Laughing Buddha Nursery really should be called Laughing Buddha Market, because now it is effectively a local foods grocery store. We sell our own farm products through there, but we also work with about 20 other producers reselling everything from produce, to honey to ferments, to whatever might be available locally from other farmers. And so, yeah, so that's what Laughing Buddha Nursery is. It's a kind of a garden store, but mostly a grocery store these days.
Yeah. So, and explain to our listeners the fact that you have that many farms that are providing produce and products for your store. What's the demographic around it? Are you guys reaching into a major metro area?
Yeah, good question. So we're in Metairie, which is a suburb of New Orleans. We're about 8 miles as the crow flies from downtown New Orleans. So we're the store, the brick and mortar store, is on a major thoroughfare, surrounded by houses and small businesses. So we're definitely in a metro area, and that works out both ways because we've got the customer base there, but also all these other farms come in to sell to farmers markets or to restaurants, and so they're already coming into New Orleans. So it really creates a really nice hub, so they can hit us on the way in or on the way out of town to supply us with the goods that they're selling us that we're reselling.
Oh, that's great. So they still get to do their markets. They kind of still get to do their direct consumer stuff, but they recognize the benefit in having an established brick and mortar there in a key area that can be open. I assume you guys are open 5 or 6 days a week in that situation.
We are. Yeah, that's right. We're open 5 days a week, standard hours. We're closed Sunday, Monday, open Tuesday through Saturday. And then, sometimes we'll get a call and they say, hey, we didn't sell this at the farmer's market. Can we drop this off?
Yeah.
So we'll work with them on that. So, yeah, it's definitely a win-win for everybody.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, let's drill down a little bit and talk about pigs. How long have you been raising pigs, and what kind of got you into that to begin with?
Well, I've been thinking about doing a farm business for a long time. We've only had the farm for 7 years now, but I got pigs, like 12 years ago or 14 years ago. I can't even remember. But anyway, we started with some guinea hogs. Actually, at the store in Metairie, the store had enough of an outdoor yard area where we had a hoop house and we sold plants and all that kind of stuff. So I built like an old school raised wooden floor, little hog barn. And so I got a boar and 2 sows. And those guinea hogs are just great pigs. I mean, they're small, they're super easy keepers, and we actually had pigs back there for several years. And that was the beginning of like, oh man, pigs are really cool, And I mean, the thing I love about pigs is, of course we feed them the purchased pig feed, but they're omnivores, they eat all kinds of stuff, and so they're definitely the garbage disposals. If you've got extra produce or plants that you're pulling up or weeds, it's really nice to have those pigs in that yard to throw all that stuff to. And so I just fell in love with the pigs, for all the reasons that people love them. And we did get out of doing them for a while, but then when we bought the acreage, which is now the farm now, that's when I was like, I think it's time to get some pigs again. And we started talking about doing a farm business, and here we are today. So now we're doing, farrow to finish with not guinea hogs, but we're doing mixed breed now. But the pigs are really one of my favorites.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's talk about. Then we want to drill down even further with a unique approach you have with composting the pigs. But let's talk a little bit about pigs on use on the farm. So obviously you're raising them for their meat to sell at the store. But are you doing anything there regeneratively with them? I know, looking at some of the pre-screening stuff, that farm was row cropped at one point. So how are you utilizing them on the property?
Yeah, so they've been, them and the goats. We all eat goats. I mean, they've done a lot with the brush. The goats have, the pigs have just been. I mean, they've really been able to go in the areas and really help develop some pasture in some areas. I mean, they really are that initial, plow, break the clay pan a little bit. We've used them to get rid of some invasive plants on the farm that have like a rhizome type root system. And so they're really like, if you need an army to go out, to your initial wave, they're great for that. And so they've been really, really important, with that, and so, what we found with our rainfall, we've got clay soil, we get 50 every year we get 50-ish inches of rain every year. And so, we do need to be careful on how we're utilizing them. So if you're in a rocky soil, 30 inches of rain a year, man, you can really hit the ground very hard with the pigs. It's pretty forgiving with that. With us, they'll dig small ponds. That's, that will fill it with water. And so we defined areas of woods where we keep the pigs. We're never going to go through the effort of removing stumps and trees in that area, right? So that's designated pig area. And then we've kind of gotten away from using them on pasture, though, just because if we have the pigs out there and, we'll get rain, we'll get a 3-inch rain. That's not uncommon. And that, that happens and the pigs are in an area and we don't have an opportunity to put them in a higher spot or get them picked up real quick. They can really kind of cause some damage that I got to go back and fix. And so we still rotate them in designated wood areas, but we've also kind of are embracing and taking in deep litter methods as well.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that because I think that's really interesting. So, as you've already mentioned, you have a background in composting with the nursery, and you providing compost, providing good soils for people to do their gardening with. So, taking that expertise and that experience, and now you've got pigs out on pasture and woodlot. How has that evolved into kind of how you're operating your pigs now?
So what it's looking like is that we've decided first off to do retail only sales, right? And so we're not going after restaurants to do carcass sales or anything like that. So our production can be a lot lower. We were selling piglets to some farms, and we kind of made the decision to go ahead and just keep the piglets for us. If we have extras, we'll sell those piglets. But with some labor challenges on the farm, you kind of have to pick with what you're going to do, what you're not going to do. So we're pretty much just farrowing for ourselves. And so we're only going to be maintaining right now about 6 sows, which is going to be plenty of piglets for us to direct market retail cuts. And then we don't really offer half and whole retail. It's just all retail cuts. And so we're not dealing with a huge volume of the pigs. So we're going to have the sows. We still want to do outdoor farrowing, right? And so we still want to have pigs that are going to be really good moms that are going to be able to be outside, farrow outside, with us giving them hay and all the things that they do need. And we're going to rotate them in the wooded areas. And when it comes to the piglets at weaning, we're going to go ahead and we're going to catch those guys up, and we're going to put them in a hoop house. We've got 2 20-foot by 100-foot hoop barns that we're using right now. And, because we still are in the garden soil composting business, we have a lot of waste stream coming in to serve as bedding, so we don't have to buy the bedding necessarily. And I just love composting. A lot of people are familiar with, Joel Salatin's, the picorated pork, throw the corn down and every couple of weeks or whatever, for the cows, and then pull the cows out and throw the pigs in. We're really not doing that type of method. But we do start with a deep litter of organic matter. We get in, wood chips and a couple other things like that to the farm. The other product that we get in is we actually get coffee grounds by the ton every week. And so that makes a really cool bedding. So you get like the wood chips, you get the coffee grounds, and we also buy up every rotten round bale we can get our hands on for a good price. And so we're heavy hay in that system. And then we also work with a couple groups where we get cardboard boxes, and we'll throw that in there, and pigs love it. I mean, they don't eat the cardboard boxes, but they certainly play. I mean, you throw in a pickup truck load of boxes into a group of pigs, and they're torn up like by the end of the day. And of course that's carbon, right? And so you throw all that stuff in there combined with their manure and urine, and at the end of it, it's some of the best compost that you can ever put on pasture. It's full of weed seeds from the hay, but that's cool because we're putting this material in areas of the farm that really needs the help. So if we can put this material down on top of pasture, we pretty much have growth right away. And so that is a way where the pigs can be more active in the healing of the land, so to speak, and not creating wallows where we don't want them. So we really want to utilize the pigs as a tool.
Yeah, wow, that's great. And man, you've got all kinds of questions popping up in my head here now. So So let's drill down a little bit more on that if we could. So you put the piglets after weaning in the hoop houses, and you said they were 20 by 100, so that's obviously pretty substantial. So how have you set those up? Explain to our listeners a little bit how you set up those hoop houses to make sure that they obviously don't destroy the building itself, the rub rails, all those type of things, and then just kind of talk about the flow of material and the timeline associated with that.
Yeah, so no, great question. We're working with that right now. We're about to, so the hoop barns we've actually bent ourselves. So everything's built out of fencing top rail. We bought a hoop bender, and so the sides right now are sheet metal, about 3 feet up, and so they can rub against that pretty good. The building is pretty stout, so they're really not going to mess with the building that way. We don't have any center posts in there right now to hold the hoop down, and I was a little worried about doing that with them rubbing on, having them be able to run on that full access. And so, and then in there we have a pretty standard metal hog feeder, and then we have a Brower style hog drinker in there. So they've got the drinker in there, they've got the hog feeder in there. We typically ration feed, so we're not giving them full choice feed. I mean, we want to regulate their growth a little bit. So we're not going to be putting a feed to them, extremely hard 24/7. And then the one thing that I haven't done that I'm going to be doing very, very soon is that we're going to be putting in a handling facility at the entrance of the barn that if you can, so we do have some small tractors, some like 30 horsepower tractors, but our big workhorse piece of equipment is the Bobcat on the farm, right? So I want to be able to drive the Bobcat into a section, close the gate behind me, open up the gate in front of me, and drive into that hoop. And then we can also use that front area when we want to pull pigs out of there. Then I can pull off 6 or 8 pigs out of the group, and then we can load them onto the trailer, do whatever we need to do with them. So it's going to be the main thing that I'm adding to it is going to be a handling facility at the front of the hoop to make it a little bit different. It's got to be able to accommodate the equipment, so I can drive the equipment in when the pigs are out and muck it out, and then windrow that material to age it before we apply it out to pasture. We are playing with how long we leave the pigs in there right now. It's like, so Kate's my wife. She's my business partner in it, and we're trying to figure out like a checklist to help us decide when we rotate the pigs. And so the items on the checklist would be, what is the weather like? How much staff do we have at this time? How long away are our processing dates? And so based upon the real-time scenario of, whether people processing availability is how long we'll leave them in that hoop house. Ideally, what we would do is, with our trailer, I like bringing in about 8 pigs at a time to our processor when we bring them in. And so, we're playing with the idea of pulling 8 out of the hoop house, maybe a month before processing, if the weather is right for us, and then rotating them to where we can do an outdoor finishing, so to speak, before we bring them to the processor. So to answer your question on the timeline, it depends. Yeah. And so we're trying to put that system in place just to help us make decisions because, look, we've all been there, right? we got the pigs out, the weather gets bad, and we're short-staffed, right? So it kind of turns into a perfect storm. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, that's when it really is not fun having pigs, because, you move them and then they just create, a mess right on the next grid, wherever you move them into, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Where am I putting these pigs? It's not raining for a week and it's like forecasted to rain for 4 more days or whatever. And so we're trying to create a decision-making system with the pigs to where we're happy, they're happy, and then we're not cratering the farm, so to speak. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, no, that's good, and I can definitely concur with that. In wintertime where we are, we don't have a hard freeze, but we get 45 and rainy is our typical January and February. So, and we have a lot of slopes. So it's just one of those things, one of the things where I have to battle the same thing. It's like, what what's the sacrificial area right now for my pigs, and that's why I don't like having a large herd at that time. I'd like to just have my breed set at that time because they're not doing as much damage.
Yeah, because you're on slope, you're probably like you're facing erosion issues, I would imagine,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And that, yeah,
big
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Big
yeah.
time.
I've got to imagine what slope is.
Yeah.
we're we're about as flat on our piece as you can get, and so ponding happens for us, and then erosion kind of happens for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's you got to look at all that context for sure.
So explain. Let's drill down just a little bit more, if you don't mind, because I'm picturing this in my head. So the two hoop houses, are you using those simultaneously, or is it a rotation process, almost like a composting toilet where they're in one and then you let it lay fallow and they move to the next?
Right. We're going to rotate them. So we can't go in and I don't know to go in and muck the pigs out while they're in a hoop house is kind of a non-starter, right?
Yeah.
And then we could pull them out, and then put them in a grid like nearby the hoop house while I maybe change that bedding out. But for the most part, I really want to go back we have not started this, but the idea is that we're going to use hoop house 1. And then once we get up to the right height where we want that material to be, we're going to pull them out and they're going to go into hoop 2, right? And then that's going to have the fresh initial bedding in there. And then when we go in to muck out hoop 2, I'm considering even putting another animal in there in some way, shape, or form after we muck it out, just to kind of break that disease cycle a little bit. So we want to be very cognizant about having disease build up and having worms build up and things of that nature. So the idea behind having those two hoop houses is to kind of go back and forth and give them a break for sure.
Yeah. Now, are these translucent hoop houses? Are they shade? I would imagine it could get pretty warm down there in Louisiana if this is like a true greenhouse setup.
Yeah. So we can drop the sides, the plastic, to where if it's really storming, we don't get rain blowing in through the side. We went with and I do want to change this up. Of course, we all live and learn, with this. And so we started with a white 6 mil UV protected greenhouse plastic that we got from Farm Tech. Sure. And so I love Farm Tech sometimes because they have a little steals and deal section, so you can get quote unquote like damaged covers, for pretty cheap. Anyway, so that's what we did with those, just to play around with what we wanted to go with. I think ideally I would do the 6 mil white and then throw on a shade cloth on top of that is what I think our ideal is. Now, we put the hoop houses in shade. So we did take the risk and say, all right, let's put the hoop houses, by some trees. So we're going to have that natural shade and that natural cold air blowing in. Obviously the risk is trees, the branches dropping on the hoop house, which I don't like to think about. Right. But I knew that you're right. You're exactly right. Having them out in the open in full sunlight, for us in the summer, and then late spring, summer, and early fall, it's just not going to work. Yeah. And so they're a natural shade on top of them having that white plastic. And so that's what we're doing right now to kind of help control and they've got airflow. So the front and backs are open. Yeah. So we got full airflow blowing in, from the front and back and from side to side, and then with the natural shade. So right now it's working out pretty good.
Yeah, you kind of get a wind tunnel effect there with that.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
So, and maybe this isn't an issue, but how do you manage moisture inside the hoop house for the best composting? I mean, do you have to introduce water? Is the urine enough? What do you do to help promote that breaking down?
Yeah, the pigs are, the pigs are supplying plenty of moisture. I'm not really so much going for super active composting while the pigs are in there, right? There's a book, holy shit, it's a great book on manure packs, and if you haven't read it, buy it, get it, and have it and read it, once a year. And I really enjoy that book. And so we're just looking to kind of keep we're looking to keep the odor down, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're looking to absorb all the urine, and we're looking to make it just a very pleasant place that I want to walk into, scratch the pigs, show people, hey, this is deep litter, and keep the pigs kind of clean, So I'm not going to add any moisture to it. And of course, with water, if there's a moisture point that they can get to, the pigs are going to start immediately wallowing in that spot. And so Kate was, I came across Kate. She had the hose out and she was spraying the pigs down in the hoop house because that, who doesn't like spraying the pigs down? And so we go, no, don't do that. Don't do that. They're going to start wallowing right in that spot, And so, anyway, so we're not adding any water to it. They're adding plenty of moisture. I want a real slow fermentation, anaerobic style, a breakdown occurring in that manure pack. Because as soon as I pull it out with the equipment and I windrow it, it's going to start composting very good. I mean, it's going to heat up. It's going to do what it needs to do to get to a point where I'm going to be happy to apply it to pasture. And again, we're not composting it to be customer ready, right? And so like when we compost, to sell to people vegetable gardens, we got to make sure there's no weed seeds in it. It's got to go through all the proper heat cycles, things of that nature. But right. With this, we're taking a very laid back approach to the composting cycle with that.
Okay, so when you're windrowing, you're bringing it outside of the structure and you're windrowing it out in the open.
That's right. Yeah, we'll stockpile in a windrow. Make it easy logistics. Windrow it, very close to the hoop house. We'll let it break down right there, and then once it's kind of broken down, because it's very thick, that hay creates has such high tensile strength. When you go into it with the equipment, it's just hard on the equipment. And so I'd rather windrow it, let all that stuff break down, and then we've got a little dump bed on our pickup truck, and so we'll load it into the pickup truck and then drive it out, to pasture and apply it. And so that's how we're handling. I want to minimize every time you touch it, it costs you money. And so that's one of the biggest things whenever people ask me about composting advice. I go, you make sure you get your handling procedure down, because that's just expensive. Drivers on the equipment, you're paying for the equipment, and you got to pay attention to that for sure.
So it's interesting you bring up cost. So let's look at this, and I know there's more reasons than just cost that affect why you do composting. The moisture, the rainfall, and all that type of stuff. So, if you had to compare, despite the wear and tear on the pasture, would you say the infrastructure cost you have for the two hoop houses and that setup, is it exponentially more than what you would if you had to put them out on pasture and establish backbone fencing and all that type of stuff?
I don't think it. So I can't speak for what the prices are now. Of course right, right. And so when we put up the 30, I'm sorry, so it's 20 foot by 100 foot, right? It cost us about all material in, not including labor, and with the cover, it was about like $2,800 or $3,000 to do that structure. So we have two of those, right? I think it's kind of money in the bank, right? Because you've got a structure there that if you say, all right, well, we're only going to have pigs in it for 6 months of the year, you can easily convert it to another structure, right? Yeah. I mean, you can do whatever, right? You can park equipment in it. You can use it for seasonal hay storage. I mean, so you have that structure. On the per square foot basis, that structure is extremely cheap, right? And I would assume that even though buying that material now would probably be more like $5,000 or $6,000 from what I'm hearing. I have not priced out, fencing top rail or hoop houses. What I understand, they've jumped up quite a bit, right? And so, but if you compare that to the current prices of, like, let's say a pole barn or other structures, it's still money in the bank as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I think you can break them down. I mean, I could break that thing down and then I can create, a couple more hoop houses, out of it. Instead of having like a 20 foot by 100 foot, I can go, you know what? I think we need, a couple of 20 foot by 20 foot structures. And so all that stuff can be broken down and rebuilt in different ways. You can't rebend the hoops, right? So you're kind of married to that 20-foot wide hoop with that. But I personally think, as far as costs go, I mean, I've never gotten our money out of those hoops. And so, with our weather and rainfall, you take all that in, it creates it's a pleasant environment. When it's just gross outside and the pigs are inside and they're dry,
right?
And then you can go in, you can handle them dry. I mean, there's a lot to say for, it's nasty outside, but it's pretty comfortable in here. And I don't know what price I would put on that, but I would put a high price on being able to do that for sure. Or not a high price, but a rather high value, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like quality of life for the farmer as much as it is for the pigs.
That's right. And I've had some discussions with some other pig folks about that, because within regenerative ag, we're very idealistic folks, right? And we really want to rotate the animals and move them around. We really, really want to do that. Like that's what we want to do. But we have to say, hey, what's the reality of the situation? And so using the buildings, with really good intent, with a lot of foresight, and say, look, we're going to use this building not as the rule, like as keeping pigs under roof all the time, but it's definitely a tool in the toolbox that I think people really should consider, especially if you've got a climate where, having the pigs out is actually going to be the opposite of regenerative, right? It's causing erosion, it's creating a lot of ponding, and at the end of the day, it's just going to hit you in the pocketbook, right? Because you got to go out and fix that,
right.
Or repair that, or you're unhappy and you're just not enjoying yourself. So all those things you need to take into consideration for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, mitigation costs can just keep adding up, and it's tough to get in front of that. All right. Well, I want to be sensitive to your time, and I know we've got another key topic we want to talk about. And for those of you listening, Grant has a business background as well, and obviously being several decades now into this experience, he is partnering up with Joel Salatin and Tom Ziegler for a conference later this summer, and I'm going to let him talk about all that. So Grant, tell us about the conference, and then why you think it's important for this conference to take place right now.
Well, it's really important subject matter, and with us in the direct-to-consumer farming world, at the end of the day, we need to be focused on people, right? And we're people, so you got to focus on yourself. You got to focus on your customers and your vendors and your staff and your employees. And a lot of times, and look, I'm this is like a conversation. This isn't a lecture, because I make the same mistakes myself. We sometimes get caught in that trap of production and trying to get the farm bigger, and hey, I want to buy this tractor because I can do this with it. We love equipment. We love adding acres to the farm, right? We love saying that we're producing 30 pigs a year now. Next year, I want to be producing 60 pigs. And so we really get caught up in that progress. And when it comes to the direct-to-consumer or the homestead, farming genre, we end up getting kind of caught up in a lot of traps, right? So like burnout right now is probably number one. Overproduction, I would put as an issue. We're producing more chicken than what we can sell at the price that we need to sell it for. And so the stuff that we're going to be talking about at Polyface in August is going to be, how to communicate with people, how to build your team, how to lead your team, how to set strategic goals. And I think that for a farm wanting to grow and kind of, create that tipping point, it's really the material that you need to add to what you're doing right now.
Yeah, that's good. So in your experience, what you've seen when people do, and I've heard exactly what you said, like I mean, we've done 84 interviews, and I would say half of them the exact same discussion. It's like, yeah, this year we did X. Next year we're going to do X times 2 or X times 3 because we're really seeing that market grow. We want to take advantage. You know, you've only got so many seasons in your farming career to be able to do this. So people seem to be very, very ambitious. So how do you advise, or how are you guys planning to advise people to approach that, to say when is it too much or when's enough? What kind of tools are you going to provide?
So kind of like look at, so this genre is like self-improvement. It's kind of like self-help, right? And, I joke that sometimes people would rather get caught in the adult book section at the bookstore versus the self-help section, of the bookstore, because I mean, look, I'll be honest with people. A lot of the self-help genre, it can come across as kind of cheesy. You got people going, saying that I'm a life coach and all this kind of stuff, right? So there is some stuff that I even roll my eyes at, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but the big picture of this type of material is basically, I like to break it down this way. You need to work on, yourself. You need to set your goals. You need to select the team the people around you that are going to help you achieve those goals. And then after you select those folks, you need to lead them. So you need to select your team and you need to lead your team. I mean, that is the big picture of what we need to do to accomplish whatever it is, you want to do. Right. And, you need going back to your question about the production, oftentimes, and this is what we do, this is just a real specific example, is we don't set production goals at our farm. We set goals on how much money we want to make at the end of the year. And so what Kate and I, we discuss is, I mean, look, we of course want to be filthy rich, right? But we're pretty conservative, right? So let's just say, for example, it used to be $75,000 was the average take-home salary to create a quote-unquote happy life. Like, you can pay for a mortgage, you can pay for the kids to go to college, you can buy a new car. You know what I mean? So that's a pretty reasonable goal. Let's say you add inflation into it, and so let's say you want to make 85 a year. So a dual income household is they want to make 85 times 2 or whatever. That's their take home. So we ask ourselves a question of, with our lifestyle and the way that we're okay with making that dollar amount as our goal. What production do we need to do to get there? Like, how many beef, how many pigs, how many chickens, how many cubic yards of compost do I need to sell? So we kind of work at it backwards to figure that out. And that will tell us what we need to do. And then it answers a lot of other questions, right? So we may say, oh, wait, we don't have the land mass. We don't have the acreage to do that production, right? Well, what are we going to do? What are our options? And so an option may be to work with other farms, because we're pretty good salespeople. We like talking with folks. And so, well, let's help other people sell others their stuff, and we can make money on that. And that can help us get to our financial goals. So we kind of reverse engineer a lot of stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So production, the production goals are not in our vernacular. We don't really talk about it that way. We say, these are the numbers we want to hit. This is what we want to make per year. This is what we want to pay our staff. Those are our really big questions that we ask for sure.
Yeah. And I like that approach, because I think we all get caught up in production and we think bigger's better. It's all about scalability. If I made X amount of dollars of profit with 10 pigs, then 20 pigs, it should be even more profitable. And that's not necessarily the case because of these barriers of entry when you scale up to say, well, now I need a bigger piece of this, or I got to buy this more infrastructure to be able to handle that. And at the end of the year, you realize, well, I did more pigs, but I actually lost money in this situation. So yeah, I like that.
That's exactly right. Because if you track that stuff on a distribution curve, like a classic bell curve, there's a point where you start hitting diminishing return.
Yeah.
And so you can actually increase your scale, but you start decreasing your profit per pound. I mean, we I want to say we see it all the time, I mean, but there's not farms that are around us, right? And they were doing it, but in the national scheme of the homestead, direct to consumer genre, we do see that pretty often, or folks buy the equipment, let's say they want to do broilers and they go to Featherman and they buy the whole shoot and match. And then they go, oh, wait a minute, I got to do this many birds to pay for this. And I go, well, didn't you think about that before you made the purchase, right? And so, and the thing is that they just don't. And again, we all do these mistakes, right? I mean, this is just part of the learning curve. But yeah, we see it happen fairly often. And when those things happen, it does create an economic challenge. But the worst thing is that it creates burnout. And then the farmer, then you're looking at, if it's a husband and wife team, that happens so often, it's like our situation, you get into fights, problems at home, everybody's working late, you're not going on vacations, you're not hanging out with your friends and family. And, you end up just getting rid of the farm, or worse. Right. And so it's not just, if you're making money or not, it's a quality of life, because if you don't have quality of life, you're going to have a poor quality of work. Right. And so it's so important to look at those things.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And that was a question I was going to ask you about teamwork, and you kind of already addressed it. But a lot of us, the team is usually it's a husband and wife team or some family member team there, and it's kind of tough to say, well, I'm going to pick my team. I'm going to get the right people on the bus. And you obviously you can't go to Kate and say, oh, Kate, sorry, you didn't make the cut. So that's not going to work. but balancing your teamwork or your team and your private life and your social life. So what have you seen with farms like that when it's time to step outside of just the immediate family that's part of the team, and it's time to hire somebody, and then how do you even begin to set goals with them or manage expectations of an employee?
Oh man, that's such a great question. We're really focused on that right now. So right now we have, not including Kate and myself, we've got 6 staff. They're all part-time, just because that's one reason they want to work for us, is because they all have something else going on. They're nanny for a family, or they're in school, or they have a little part-time business where they're cutting grass or something, whatever. And so a benefit to them is actually being part-time. So we're actually going through, so what I said about working on yourself, working on your goals, selecting your team, leading your team, part of leading your team in this case, like, so if you drill down on what do I mean by leading your team, it's we can spend a day on it, but like what we do, the top 2 things that we do is, one, we have conversations with our staff on what their goals are in their personal life, right? Because if we are helping them achieve some of their personal goals, they may say, well, look, I only want to work for you for 6 months. I want to get this experience underneath my belt because I'm going to go to graduate school, in next semester. I want to get all this, and I can, we're really going to look out for them, and we're really going to try to honor that to where they do learn as much as they can while they're with us. And so we really have these one-on-one conversations with the staff, because if we can help them achieve their own personal goals, then quite simply, they're just going to be better staff. They're going to be reciprocal, and they're going to also be like, you know what, Grant, Kate are looking out for our goals, so I'm going to help them achieve their goals. And so that really is very important. And the second thing is we have to identify the talents and the default personalities of the staff to figure out where we want to place them. And so right now, Kate is going through Strength Finders with all of our staff at the store. So they're all reading the Strength Finders book.
Yeah.
They're all doing the test to figure out where they are. There's a couple of models. There's DISC and there's Emergenetics and a couple of other things. They're all very good. And so, there's 5, things that, 5 big strengths, your main things. And so, we're taking that very seriously. So they're reading the book, they're doing the test, they're going to have meetings based upon that. There's group exercises based upon that. And there's going to be a lot of discussion that Kate's going to be doing with our store team with that. So, I mean, and then you can figure out, okay, this person's really good at putting the orders together. This person's really good at checking inventory. This person, if there's a customer who's not happy for some reason, let's let this person take it because she's best. She's the most empathetic person that we may have. Let them deal with that. Solve that problem with that customer. So those are the two biggest things. Is one, having real conversations with your staff on where they want to go in life, and then two, put them in the right position for them to be successful. And these things are not easy. It takes a lot of proactivity for the employer to do these things. And I'm kind of getting sick and tired of people saying, oh, people just don't know how to work anymore. They don't have the work ethic anymore. I was in line at the airport the other day, and two women were talking. They just went on total rant. Two strangers, but they bonded over, you just can't find good workers anymore. And I wanted to do it. I did not, but I wanted to turn to them, and I was like, well, there's no good boss. What about the boss's role? Where about the employer's role? Like, what is the employer doing to really incentivize the folks? And right now the buzzword is the Great Resignation, and it's amazing how many people I'm running to right now that have left their corporate jobs or whatever to pursue their talent / passion, just because they weren't being appreciated at work. And that would be the third thing I would say with team is you got to show appreciation. And so those are just, and then those are the type of things that we'll be talking about at Polyface in August. We're really going to be going deep into all these areas. And at the end of the day, if you're the farm owner, I mean, these things are some of the cheapest economic things that could have the biggest impact on your farm. I mean, it literally costs, dollars, to implement these strategies, and it could just make you thousands of dollars. And so it's very highly effective for sure.
Yeah, I think, and that's a great point. And I think we all, as small business owners, we all think in our mind that, well, I'm great to work for. Why wouldn't anybody want to work for me? And you're getting a paycheck. You agreed to this many dollars an hour, so we all came to terms there. I'm great to be around. Everybody loves me, type of thing, as a boss. But then not even realize that you get so blindsided when you're halfway through the season and your employee hits the eject button, just simply says, I'm done. I'm gone. I'm leaving. Today's my last day. And you're like, wait a minute. Why not? Why? We didn't get a chance to talk about any of this stuff. Yeah. What can I do to convince you to stay? Because you didn't realize what it's going to take to get somebody else in, train them, get them up to speed, and all those type of things. And that's where those unintended costs really show up, is when you have the turnover on somebody that you really need. And like you said, that investment on the front end could just be dollars, whereas trying to flip somebody there in the middle of the season could cost you thousands of dollars.
Oh, there's no doubt. And again, this is a conversation I'm not immune to it by any means. We really went through a very difficult cycle at the farm. I mean, to the point where I, as positive as I am, was really like, nobody wants to work here. We're not going to be able to find workers. And so I hit a little low point, and Kate's like, no, Grant, come on, shake out of it. And so, I contacted some folks and I said, hey, can I write an article for you on how to keep farm staff? And they're like, great. And so I started writing this article. And so as I was writing it, I was kind of encouraging myself. And then you read it and I go, I got to listen to myself here. Right. And I did. And we found just a fantastic worker who's just really working out right now. And so it went from a real low point, but I followed the checklist, right? I followed the instructions. And so, all right, this is how you're going to get yourself out of the hole staff wise. And it works. I mean, it really does. And so it's just very powerful, to be able to do that. And, going to what you said about, we're just a small business, a lot of times, small businesses, we kind of get in the habit of bringing, a knife to a gunfight, right? Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is that you've got, let's just say, like the 5 big meat packers, you got the big boys, right? They put so much money into corporate training and strategy, it's probably insane, right? And so they're doing the things with their managers and their leadership as a whole. That's what corporations do. Corporations put money into this type of training and these kind of policies. Granted, a lot of times it's lip service and it may not be like fully genuine, but they do put a lot of effort into it. And so just because we're small and just because we're farming doesn't mean that we need to talk. It doesn't mean that we don't have to talk about these things and implement these strategies on our farm. And so if we want to, stay relevant in the market, we really need to use these tools. And again, they're very inexpensive. Buying books for your crew and asking everybody to read it, and then taking some time out for there to be discussion, and taking employees to the side one-on-one and asking them what they want. I mean, it's in the big picture of, the cost of retraining somebody, just like you said, it's just pennies on the dollar. It's just such an easy thing to implement, but the thing is that in order to implement it, you have to learn about it, and then you have to incorporate it into your life. So, to the farmers listening out there, if you're not putting together, a written goal list of what your daily, your weekly, your monthly, your annual, your 5-year goal, your 10-year goal, if you're not writing those goals down right now, that means that there's a huge amount of improvement that you can do, within your own wheelhouse, so to speak. So this is a huge opportunity to grow your farm through a lot of these strategies, for sure.
Yeah, and you said something that just has been rolling in my head as you're explaining this is a lot of us small farmers probably don't even know what we don't know. So there's an education element here at first. It's like, well, I want to grow, I want to be successful, but I don't know what's going to hinder me, or I don't know what I need to put in place to assist me. So it's like this, I assume your conference is going to handle this. It's kind of the education of, here's what you even need to consider before you can implement. You got to know what you don't know.
No, that's exactly right. And when we first started the farm, when Kate's like, "Hey, let's do this farm business," I had just sold my shares in a large-scale composting facility at the time, so I was kind of like unemployed, and we were trying to figure out what to do. And we had been fans of Polyface and everything, and I was like, "Well, look, if we're going to do this, we really don't know this business, right? I mean, so let's figure this out." So I contacted Daniel Salatin, as Joel's son, and he's pretty close to my age. My parents, some of the advice they gave me was find a mechanic your age and a doctor your age, right? So y'all can learn together your like whole life, right? And so I like finding people my age to learn from, right? And so he didn't do consulting, but they still will do speaking engagements. And he's like, well, we don't do consulting, we do speaking engagements. And I was like, that sounds fantastic, right? Because I know through experience the things that you learn from people when you're just having conversations versus like a formal lecture could be they could just say something and you go, wait, what did you say? And they're like, oh, I don't know what I said. And I was like, no, you just said something brilliant, Right. And then you're just hanging out, right? And so, so anyway, so we put on some seminars at the farm with him, with Daniel, and we gleaned a lot of that business side, on how they operate. And that's what I was really interested in, was not so much their agricultural, processes, but it was like, well, how do you run your business? How are you putting your teams together? How are you networking with your customers? It's the business part. And we learned so much, and we still do learn so much from them. And so it's very important to, educate yourself beyond the agricultural skill set. I mean, that's really what I'm trying to say is, you need to be a good farmer. You need to know ag, but you also need to know people, you need to know these things. It's just extremely vital.
Yeah. Good deal. Well, Grant, give us the actual details of the conference. So if people are listening, they can check it out, or at least get an idea of when and where and how, and you kind of the call to action of people that want to participate in this.
Oh, sure. So it's taking place at Polyface in Virginia this August 5th and 6th. It's two all-day seminars, lunches included. Sign up is actually on Polyface's website, and I can give you the link so you can put it in the details. And anybody can reach out to me. I'll also send you the email address where people can contact me and my phone number if anybody has any questions about it. And if you can't make the conference or seminar, and if anybody has any questions, they can shoot me an email, and then I'd be more than happy to kind of guide them on, a book to read or whatever. If they got any questions about it, don't be shy. But yeah, so it's this August at Polyface with Tom Ziegler and Joel Salatin. I'll be there, and we're hoping to have a good turnout, and really looking forward to it.
Sounds great. Great. Well, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me today. I know you've got farm work to do, and you may be sucking up a little too much air conditioning right now. You got to get back out in the heat. So
yeah, that's right. Yep.
So I'm going to let you go, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate what you're doing with the podcast.
All right. Well, you take care. All right. Well, I really appreciate Grant coming on the podcast and sharing all that information with us. And again, as you heard there, the call to action at the end, that conference has been canceled. It will be rescheduled, and as soon as we get dates, we'll share that again as well. I think it's an interesting conference. I think if it's something that could resonate with a lot of us in dealing with business management as we're growing our farms. So reach out to Grant. Like I said, I'll leave the contact information below. Reach out to him and just let him know, hey, I would be interested in that. Put me on the list when you reschedule, and he, I'm sure, can email you or send you a message to let you know that there's been a date and a spot has been saved for you if you want to do so. Well, again, if you would like to be on the podcast or you have a topic you would like to address, by all means, reach out to me, troy@redtoolhouse.com, or you can use the contact form on the pasturedpig.com website or redtoolhouse.com. We still have that one out there as well. So feel free to reach out to me and let me know, and we'll try to get you scheduled. Well, I pray everyone have a great week. I appreciate you taking time to listen. Take care.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.